Welcome to the Create Today podcast. This show is all about how you can create the life that you want one day at a time, no matter what kind of shit you've been through. I'm your host, Karen Stanley. I always forget about that part. And my guest is Jenn Cordz, the amazing Jenn Cordz, who's in town for a day now.
Yes.
This is awesome. She's a professional angler, which I didn't even know that word until today. Fly fisher woman. I know you're not allowed to say gender words anymore, but she's an amazing, badass woman, a mom to an awesome boy, man, and incredible entrepreneur and all of the things. She's incredible. I'm so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, anytime. She said she was going to be in town. I was like, well, let's do this in person then.
Absolutely.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So before we talk about what your life is like right now, just want to back up and I want to go through some of the challenges that you've had as a woman, as a single mom, as all of the things. I would assume fisher women are a little sparse, aren't they?
We are, yeah. It's one of the fastest growing segments in fly fishing, just in general. Yeah. But we're still about 1 to 7. So for every female angler, there's 7 male anglers. So you don't see them very frequently.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one on television anytime they have those shows or
yeah,
whatever.
No, and like on the Bass Tour, I think there's 3 professional women.
Wow.
And they have like half the sponsors that the men have, things like that. One of my really good friends just opened a fly lodge up in Alaska, and she's been guiding up there since 2008. But
Badass.
She was one of the first women that was guiding up in Alaska, and she so what is that, 15 years almost, to open her first lodge up there.
Wow. So, I want to go there.
So cool. Very cool.
Someday I'm going to go on one of your adventures because I want to learn how. I've never been fly fishing in my life.
It's phenomenal. I love sharing that passion just with people on the water, but also like trout and any fish don't really live in ugly places. And so even if you're not catching fish, it's still, you're just out in nature. There's something rejuvenating about just standing in the river. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. You should definitely come.
It's definitely on my list. I remember when I was newly married to my first husband as a young woman, I found it boring. And that really says more about myself than actual fishing. I didn't like to stay still. I didn't like quiet time, right? I wasn't comfortable around myself, around silence. And obviously, I'm a little older now, and I love being outside. I could just be outside 16 hours a day, all day long.
That's very similar to Ethan, my son. He loved fishing, like the lakes and things. His grandparents live on a lake, and he loved like classic angling, like with just the spin rod and stuff, and sticking marshmallows on there and throwing them out. And
marshmallows, seriously?
Marshmallows work. or like the power pellets that are like neon yellow and green, and they smell good to fish, I guess.
No way.
Yeah, he loved that aspect of it because it was more action, whereas fly fishing, you're trying to trick them using like flies that look like bugs, so you're trying to go more the natural route, and he didn't quite get the zen of it. But now that he's older, he too actually has asked me to take him out a few times. And even when we're not having a good day of fishing, like he just loves being out there. It was very similar. He also hated hiking with me because he's like, well, what's the point? You're just wandering around in the woods. Yeah. But now he goes on his own all the time with his girlfriend here in Arizona, and he just loves it. And so it's just kind of that evolution that you kind of appreciate the natural world.
My kids never wanted to go hiking with me either. Yeah. When they
There's
were
something
really little, we could wander around on the little hills around the zoo, like that kind of stuff, but not real hikes. They're like, nah, I don't want to go.
Unless there was like a waterfall at the end.
Right.
Like Ethan wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it's all about the destination.
Yeah, I had to give him something that we were hiking towards versus just wandering around in the woods.
Like Chick-fil-A at the end.
Yeah. We'll get you ice cream.
Same.
Yeah.
But then when I do cajole them into hiking, like when family comes to visit or whatever, they don't like to admit they have a blast. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
You know you love this. Give me a break.
Yeah. It's the same with Ethan too. And like my mom also loves hiking and being just outdoors or gardening, or she likes going to like the lavender festivals up in Western Washington. And Ethan too would grudgingly go, but he's taking pictures and he's having a good time. He just won't admit it.
Yeah. I'm not going to let mom know I like this crap.
can't tell her that it's actually kind of cool.
I have to have that sullen look on my face. Tell her no. Anything she wants me to do, nope.
Got to be the petulant 20-year-old.
Is he 20?
Yes, he is 20. He will be 21 in September.
Gosh, so our boys are only 6 months apart. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I remember you telling me that.
Time flies.
It does. Now, you were never married to his father, right?
Nope, never married to him.
So let's talk about that story.
Let's talk about that story.
Yeah.
So I grew up overseas, and so I moved.
Where?
Well, kind of all over, but most of my time was spent in Cairo, Egypt, for 9.5 years.
Did we talk about this when we met?
Kind of.
John lived in Cairo.
Yeah, we briefly
I couldn't remember if we talked about
it.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, when he was a kid.
Yeah, so we were
nuts.
We were in Cairo. That's where I started school, and then that's also where I finished school. So elementary, and then finished high school there as well. And it's a different world. So like the term for how I grew up is called a TCK, a third culture kid, because I grew up in a culture that's different than my parents' culture. My parents grew up here in the United States.
Right.
And so I grew up more of a worldly sort of background. And I mean, it was amazing. My dad's job took us all over the place.
What was his job?
He's an oil engineer.
Wow.
He's now retired, but yeah, basically anywhere they were doing oil drilling, we kind of went.
Whoa.
And so we were in Houston, Cairo, Calgary. He did some work in Dubai also, and the United Arab Emirates. And then he had some projects like on the North Slope in Alaska.
Oh.
So moved around a lot.
Interesting, because John's dad, his adopted dad, was in the Federal Aviation Administration, and it took him to like almost all the same places.
Yeah,
Alaska,
a lot of people usually first question is, oh, military?
Yeah.
No, oil brat.
Yeah, oil. Well, I'm an Air Force brat. John's a FAA brat, I guess.
Yeah, aviation.
Why are we called brats, by the way?
I don't know.
It's rude.
It is a little bit. It is. Maybe it's just because it's different than everybody else, so they automatically think that privileged brat. I don't know.
Because we had to pack and move every 2 years.
Oh,
I don't know if that's really necessarily a privilege.
I am like a professional mover.
Me too.
And I have, people joke, but I have inventory of my DVDs and my books and everything, even still.
No way.
Yeah. Just
You kept all of your DVDs?
Yeah.
I don't have any of mine. And I don't even have a DVD player.
Neither do I, but I still have them all.
I wish I would have kept them.
Yeah, I've got them, and like Ethan has a DVD player, and so he's come to raid my boxes of DVDs a few times, or he'll like text me, Mom, do we have this movie? Mail it to me. And
seriously?
Yeah.
No, I'll give you $17. I don't want you to take my DVD. Yeah. Here's $15,
it's
dude.
On Paramount Plus,
right.
like just
$3.99, right? Yeah. You know that. Okay, whatever.
That's
awesome.
So grew up overseas, and then I came back to the United States for university because my mom wanted me here in the States to be near family. And so every summer and Christmas, we always went up to Washington State because that's where my dad's from. My mom's from Alaska, and so that's just where family has been.
Before you go on, I'm just curious, because of John's experience in Cairo was not good. Did you have any problems there, or did people look at you or treat you like badly because you were an American?
I would not say they treated us badly at all, but like, so we lived in the expat community Maadi, which is just south of Cairo near the American school there. There was a kindergarten through 12th grade campus there. And so we lived around mostly expats. But I wouldn't say they treated us badly, definitely differently. And like, we were always watched. Like, you could never really go anywhere and somebody didn't know where you were. And like, every building has what's called a BOAB, and they're like responsible for the building, the maintenance of the building, the gardening, all of that stuff. So every building has somebody, and so you could never really go anywhere and not be seen. And so a lot of times, I mean, parents knew where you were before you even told them where you were. But I never really thought of it as a parent. Yeah, I never really thought of it as a bad thing. A few of my friends that grew up in the same area, they felt, I don't know, almost predatory. A few of them have like PTSD related to like sexual harassment. Like, I mean, we got whistled at as kids. Like, I had super blonde hair because the Saharan desert like bleached out my hair. And so blonde haired, blue eyed, like, you were always whistled at and kind of like gawked at just because you were different. And so I do have some friends that feel that sort of set their personal boundaries differently than how everybody else is. But never really felt threatened. I never felt unsafe. Like, it was always just, I don't know, to me, I mean, people ask, where are you from? Like, Cairo is still what I consider home because that's where all my formative memories are.
Right.
So,
most of your schooling.
yeah.
I only asked that because when John told me about Cairo to begin with, I mean, he lived there when Kennedy was assassinated, and everybody cheered when our president was killed. They were celebrating in the school. But I don't think it's kind of the same situation. First of all, it was 20 or 30 years before you were born.
Yeah, I was there late 80s, early 90s.
So this is obviously the 60s.
Yeah.
Early 60s, but also not really like a community of Americans where you have some people that are similarly, like it was a French parochial school. Like, I don't think it was like very similar. Different time, but definitely.
Different time, and I think, just different sort of
circumstances
mindset
either.
Of people.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we first moved there, you couldn't get like regular milk. And this is, I mean, people are like, what do you mean you couldn't get regular milk? Like pasteurized milk that's like in the grocery store.
They probably
the refrigerator
didn't pasteurize
section.
it.
No, and you couldn't even get just like fresh milk.
Oh.
You drank boxed milk, like the UHT stuff that's shelf stable and it's kind of watery, and
I remember that.
It's not awesome. And we would come back here to the States in the summertime, and my mom would just go to the store and she'd buy gallons of milk, and we would drink so much milk in the summertime because we were just without it. And you couldn't get boxed cake mix, you couldn't get regular cereal. And so my dad's company was really awesome that we could take excess luggage on every trip back and forth.
Oh, that's cool.
So a family of 5, you could usually tell that they were expats because we were traveling with like 20 something bags of like, and big old boxes of things. And my mom would do coolers because you couldn't get any sort of pork products or meat or anything else there. So she would put dry ice in a cooler and we'd take it all back with us.
Oh, that's wild.
And like the military people, they had commissary privileges, which is basically like a Costco on the military base.
That's the only place we shopped.
Yeah, we didn't have that. So you either got local grocery store or you brought it with you. And we did get shipments about every 6 months of food that you could just order from the States and the company would bring it in. But sometimes the cereal would show up and have weevils in it and you couldn't still get the fresh stuff that you were used to here in the States. And so it was a different world. But then when I finally graduated high school, there were whole American grocery stores over there, and you could get anything and everything that you wanted. And there was like a Fuddruckers and Chili's and McDonald's. When they first put McDonald's in, they had to put armed guards at the exit of the drive-through because people were trying to go the wrong way down the drive-through because they were so excited that it was there. And the only fast food, like American fast food restaurant that really didn't make it was Taco Bell, because they make a lot of their food with beans, and to Egyptians, beans are the food of the poor. And so the people who could afford going to Taco Bell didn't want to go there because they were eating food that was kind of below them.
Really?
Yeah. But every other American like fast food thing, just they love it.
They go crazy. That's so great how we're poisoning the entire globe. One fast food restaurant at a time.
Well, and like, and I mean, at McDonald's, they also have the McFalafel burger. So it's like, oh yeah, dead serious.
I bet that's actually good.
It actually is. With tahini and everything else. And so instead of like a quarter pounder with cheese, you have a McFalafel burger.
Yeah, I remember being in Russia in the early 90s, and they were super ecstatic about the McDonald's too. They went nuts. Yeah. McDonald's and Pizza Hut were swarmed.
Yes.
Packed, jam, 24/7.
Yeah. Pizza Hut was the first American food that was over there. And then KFC quickly followed.
Whoa.
And and then when Pizza Hut first was there, it was about 6 months afterwards, you could tell that it went from like the American ownership and running to the Egyptian because they started switching out some of the ingredients. And what was marinara sauce then became like ketchup for a little while. And then they did a chipsy pizza, which it was like pizza dough, ketchup, and then potato chips on top of it. It was a little weird, but it was actually kind of good.
I'm the only person in the world that doesn't like ketchup. I just don't like ketchup. Yeah, the only
it's
person that I know.
Sweet.
Ugh.
Yeah, I like the unsweetened, like the natural ketchup. Like if I'm gonna eat ketchup, like I like the natural.
I just can't.
No ketchup
I don't
for
know
Karen.
what it is. No ketchup for Karen. That'll be my new tagline.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I can't believe we digressed about all of that fast food in Egypt, but it is so fascinating. Like,
Yeah,
just
it's completely
another
different world.
Yeah,
and like
in every way.
In the school, like, I mean, it was a 12-foot wall around it. Like, I also walked by armed guards that had AK-47s every single morning.
Bet.
Like, you had a badge that you had to show to get in and out of the gate. My classmates were ambassadors' kids and military kids. And so it was a very different experience.
Yeah.
And so then having that type of an upbringing coming back here to the United States for university was almost reverse culture shock, because people still ask me like about episodes of Friends and Dawson's Creek and things like that. I've never seen any of them. Like, I've seen like Friends on reruns on television, but I've never actually watched end to end. I wasn't part of the whole Friends craze. I have no idea anything about Dawson's Creek or Gilmore Girls or anything else. Like, I know of them.
Yeah.
But on like trivia night at the bar, like, pop culture is my worst topic ever, because I know nothing of it. And I mean, we had VHS tapes that my grandmother she'd record the season of like Quantum Leap, because my mom and dad loved that. Simpsons was my absolute favorite show. And so then at Christmas, we would come back and pick up the VHS tapes from her. And so I'd get to watch the previous season, but I always was a season behind.
A year later.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's so cool.
And so then coming here to the States for university.
What state?
Washington State.
That's right.
It was very different, and trying to fit in with kids that didn't have the same experience. Like, my first roommate in college, they put where you're coming from, and 9/11 had just happened. And it said I was coming from Cairo, Egypt. They had no idea that I was actually American or anything like that. She petitioned the school to actually change roommates because her mom was fearful that because I was coming from a Middle Eastern country. And so that was first experience of coming to university, and already my roommate didn't want to be my roommate.
Nuts. Obviously they didn't see you. It
was just
that might have given it away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a paper that said your name and where you're from.
Yep. And so that was first experience. And then most of her friends, like, they got over it, but then most of her friends were from Eastern Washington, and none of them had really traveled or anything. And so it was, my experiences were almost like a circus sideshow. Like, they wanted to know about them just because they thought it was like this, I don't know, spectacle almost. And so trying to fit in, it was difficult.
You don't have anything to relate to them about.
Yeah,
There's
not
nothing
really.
you can relate to.
Yeah, and I
Weird.
was taking junior level French and like sophomore level math and sciences, because I tested out of almost all of my freshman classes, just because the school education system is also different. Like, I had an international baccalaureate versus a high school diploma. We didn't really have AP program, things like that. So it's just
Sounds like all of your classes were AP.
Yeah, kind of.
They just didn't call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so it was really different. And so coming here to the States, trying to fit in, trying to make friends, it was weird. And so I just changed kind of who I was to try and fit in with everybody else. And so my son's dad was
Ethan's father.
Ethan's dad. So my roommate was friends with another guy, and they were on fire service together. They would do like summers and fighting wildfires.
Wildfire, yeah.
And so his roommate was my son's dad. And we just went to a party. We kind of hit it off. I thought he was funny. I didn't kind of hold my same standard that I usually would. Like, he wasn't an athlete. He really wasn't outdoorsy. He wasn't worldly at all, like any of those things. But I just was so desperate kind of to fit in that I really just didn't care.
Yeah.
And my mom saw the red flags like early on. She came to visit me in January, so 6 months after I had started school, and he was sitting in the back seat. Like, I started rowing crew. I'd never rowed before.
Cool.
My roommate wanted to try it, and they had open tryouts. She's like, you got to come do this. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never done it, but sure, let's go. I'm all up for new experiences. Yeah, give me a paddle. Let me just try this thing. But I had fallen in love with it. Crew is one of those things like marathon running. You either grow an appreciation for it or you absolutely fall in love with it, because when you're in a crew boat and you're rowing in a race, you can't stop. You can't slow down. You have to keep pace with every pain, but you love it type thing. And I was so jazzed about this. And I was telling my mom when she came to visit, and Josh was there, and he was sitting in the back seat, and under his breath, he said, I don't know why anybody would dedicate their life to a sport. And like, I have been an athlete my entire life because my mom just didn't really know what to do with my energy. So she put me in literally every sport possible. So I've played soccer, baseball, volleyball, swimming, like all the things as a kid. And so then going into university, I knew at the time they didn't recruit internationally. So I knew baseball, volleyball, I wasn't going to be playing those in university.
Yeah.
And so now crew was just this new sport that like I could actually have a chance to compete at a collegiate level. And I was just so jazzed about it. And my mom heard that and like, she just knew right then, like,
nope,
it shouldn't have worked. But of course, at that age, we never listened to our mothers.
Never care what our parents say.
And so I stayed with him, and well, accidents happen. And so then Ethan became to be. And
we still don't know why.
I don't know why. But yeah, so.
How did he take the news? Like, how far along were you when you told him?
I was like
right away?
2.5 months.
Okay, right away.
Because like being an athlete, I really never was regular in that department anyway.
Yeah.
And so when I missed my period, it never really dawned on me that I'd actually missed. I was just, I'm not getting one.
Right.
Like, okay. And then it kept not happening. And so then like morning sickness started, and like I was always sick and always really tired. And I mean, as a university student, you're always tired anyway because you're wanting to party and hang out with your friends and go to class, and then also being an athlete.
Never sleep.
You're never sleeping. So I just chalked it up to just never sleeping. But I went to the doctor, and then they obviously told me, and so then I told him, and he wasn't overly happy with it. And I told him one way or another, I'm keeping it. Like, I don't care. And I'm all for pro-choice and everything else, but at the time I was just like, I'm not willing to get an abortion. And so it was just a personal thing, and I'm like, you want to be part of it, great. If you don't want to be, like, I'm doing this anyway.
Peace out, right?
And so he stuck around, and he was kind of for it, but he was 20 in university. I was 18. Yeah,
both of our sons' ages.
Yeah, and so like having a kid then, looking back now, it's just like I was not ready at all.
Just like babies.
Yeah, and I turned 19 in July. Ethan was born in September. Josh had just turned 21. And so he was more interested in like being a 21-year-old in a college town and hanging out with his friends and stuff. And so I ended up kind of being single parent anyway. And we were living together, and his brother was living with us. And so was one of his high school friends, but it really wasn't a supportive type relationship, and we weren't really growing together. We were just kind of co-parenting because we kind of had to.
Yeah.
What
did your parents say? Did they freak out? Were they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Short answer. My parents weren't overly happy about that either, and I didn't tell them. They didn't really know until summer, like third trimester. So like they were in Dubai.
Right.
My little sister was still in high school. My older sister was
them.
over there.
No, we're not telling them.
You know. But like my mom kind of knew when she came back in the summer before I even said anything. Like I hadn't gained too much weight at the time, and like I have a really long torso, so Ethan had plenty of space in there. And even when I was like 4 or 5 months is usually when people start showing, like I wasn't, just because I didn't. And so people didn't actually believe that I was pregnant until about 6, 7 months when I really did actually start showing. It was like overnight, just boom. Yeah. Okay, I'm pregnant.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello, you're there. So she knew, but like they were still in Dubai when he was born.
Yeah.
So they didn't actually meet my son until they came back at Christmas time. And so that was December that they actually met Ethan.
Oh my gosh.
So I had him by myself. His dad's parents were in Eastern Washington. So like when I went into labor and into the hospital, like they drove over the following day. So they met Ethan after that. But 14 and a half hours of labor with no drugs. I cannot recommend it. It is 0 stars.
Not even one.
No. If I could give it negative stars, I totally would. But when I went into labor, I didn't know that it was fine because it was still several weeks before like kind of that window that they give you when you should be due. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm thinking, okay, I'm 8.5 months pregnant. He's not ready to come out yet, et cetera, et cetera. So like when I went to the hospital, they actually gave you whatever drug it is to slow down contractions. So they were trying to stop labor.
Oh.
So they could do an ultrasound and run the tests that they need to make sure that it was actually okay. And so, and it was all done IV.
Wild.
And so when you have those IV drugs in you, like it takes a while for it to like wear off. And so 4 or 5 hours, like it was them trying to stop labor, and then they took it off. And so then like you go back into labor as the drugs wear off, and then that's when it just kind of hits you. And so like intense labor was probably 9-ish hours. And by the time I was like, give me the drugs, they're like, no, he's going to be here within the next hour, hour and a half. You can't have drugs now. You're past the point. I'm just like,
Thanks a lot.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
It's crazy.
And at the time, they really didn't give me any information about like what was an epidural and everything else. Like everybody.
Why not? That's nuts.
Yeah, it's weird. And
they were like shoving that down my throat. I don't even remember them asking me if I wanted one. They're like, here, sit up and bend over. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Weird.
No information about it at all. And like the little bit that I had read about was a very large needle in your spine. And like, I kind of have this weird fear of like paralyzation with my spine. So I'm just kind of really sensitive about it. And so like, that was as much information as I knew about epidurals. And so I was like kind of desperate by the time I asked, because I'm like, okay, fine. They're just going to stick a massive needle in my back and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, but it didn't ever end up happening. But yeah, basically full-term baby. He was 21 and a half inches long, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Super cute baby. The perfect baby.
He's so cute.
He came out with like super like blonde hair and like jewel blue eyes. Like I have pictures of him as a baby, and just his eyes are just stunning and
just like mom's.
Thanks.
Wow.
But yeah, and so
It
then
been
after
a rough
that,
like year.
It was.
That first year is.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, Josh was still going to school and stuff like that, and so was I. But his brother was living with us, and like I said, one of his high school friends was living with us, so I kind of had help. And like his brother was incredible. He was there working, and he knew that I was home all day with Ethan, and he'd come home from work and just kind of pick up Ethan and go like to give me a break. And I would catch them napping together and like playing together. And his uncle works on cars and motorcycles and things like that. So he'd take a blanket out and lay it out on the ground, and Ethan would be sitting there and he'd be working on his car or whatever. It was so cute. And Ethan and his uncle have a really close relationship still to this day. But yeah, it was really hard because his dad was trying to adjust to being a new parent and also a 21-year-old and still wanting to have a college life and all of that. So first year was really rocky. The second year was also really rocky because at that point we had moved into our own apartment, so we weren't living with everybody else. And that's kind of when everything else devolved. Yeah. And so when Ethan was 2 is actually when we just split. And we didn't have any official paperwork or anything else. And so then I moved to Eastern Washington because his dad's parents had offered help, and my job had offered to transfer me, like so I was working retail, and so they offered to keep me and transfer me with my same level of managerial responsibilities. And so I'm like, okay. So I moved to Eastern Washington, and then he followed later. And now looking back on that, I basically walked into, I don't want to say the lion's den, but kind of did, because Eastern Washington is like the biggest little town ever. Like it's amazing. Like the people are all super nice, but it is like 3 degrees of separation. Everybody knows everybody. People move away, and then they come back, or they're born and raised there and they go away for university and come back.
And Josh was born and raised there. He literally knew every single person in town. What's the name of the town?
Spokane.
Oh, it's Spokane. That's right.
Yeah. And so it's just.
It's also weird because that's where my ex-husband is from.
That is
I forgot
weird.
about how many parallels we have.
There's too many parallels.
So weird. We probably know each other.
Probably.
He wasn't born there, but he lived there most of his life.
Yeah.
They probably know each other.
Probably. Yeah, a lot of, and like I said, like everybody knows everybody. And so I was always kind of treated as an outsider because I wasn't married to them. I wasn't an ex-wife. I wasn't born and raised there.
Right.
So there really were no similarities or any sort of relationship of any kind. And so it was always hard for me to also make friends. But so yeah, living in Eastern Washington, Josh came afterwards. And so we were kind of living in the same area, kind of co-parenting. It was mostly amicable until he met his now wife, because he kind of played the I'm the single dad card, poor me, I need help, female influence, et cetera, et cetera. And she kind of fell for it. And so then after they got married, they petitioned for custody, which was a really nasty court battle, like right before Ethan was supposed to be starting kindergarten. And they were living in a different school district and all of that. And so I didn't actually know if Ethan was going to get to go to the kindergarten school that I had registered for him until like 5 days before school started. Like we were cutting it so freaking close. And so
obviously he did not get full custody.
He didn't, no. They tried to actually take full custody from me and basically give me every other weekend.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, saying I was a terrible mom and everything else. And it's just like, okay, no.
No judge is going to do that.
No. And so
that's stupid for them to even try anyway.
Yeah, and I had an amazing lawyer. Connie was phenomenal, and she talked me through all the process. And anytime I'd get served with papers or anything else, like I would be in tears on the phone, and she'd be like, no, you're fine. And she'd explain what it is. And yeah, she was incredible. And so that made it rough. But at the same time, it almost solidified how everything should work. So it almost made it kind of more easy because there was now that structure.
Whole framework. So everybody knows what's happening and where are the kids going when. Yeah. It's true.
And it wasn't an ideal situation. Like the first 2 or 3 years, like I would get weekdays, like school days, and then they would get 3 of the 4 weekends a month, and then they would get 1 full week, and I'd get that weekend. So it was this weird weekend type situation, and then all holidays were split, and so it was just kind of weird. And then we moved to a different sort of week on, week off structure, and then as Ethan got into high school and stuff, it went like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So
yeah,
and then when Ethan could start driving himself places, like it didn't really matter anymore.
Wherever you want to go, yeah.
But yeah, with that structure in place, it helped, but it still made it tenuous a bit, just because vacations and things. Like I was also in mediation like 48 hours before I was supposed to go see my parents in United Arab Emirates because they thought I was gonna take Ethan and not come back. Oh, so yeah. So there was just that, and it was also just the fears. So his wife also is born and raised in the area, and her entire family still lives there, and so it was very cliquish almost, and I almost had to be careful of who I was friends with because in some way they were connected to one of the two of them. And so it's just, I kind of kept to myself, and I traveled a ton, and like, so I made friends elsewhere, not necessarily in Spokane, but I have friends that are still there, and they're amazing people. And so fishing helped, hiking helped, being able to volunteer in Ethan's classroom. There was another mom that was similar aged as I was, and so she and I got close, and we're still kind of close today. And
I love that.
Watching the boys kind of grow up together was really fun, and seeing them from kindergarten when they were like jumping off of rocks and playing at the pumpkin patch on field trips to graduating high school, and it was incredible. So
God, I know. I would literally give anything to spend one day with our babies, like just if I could just have them be 5 just for one day, you know, wouldn't you? I'd give anything.
Well, and like those Apple memories, like on your phone, they pop up of like old pictures and stuff. I'm like, I remember when you were that little.
I know. Yeah. And we didn't even have smartphones when they were born.
Nope.
So maybe I'm trying to think of like what year did we everybody kind of get an Apple phone? Like I had a digital camera because they're talking 2003. So you're like,
so you had like your memory cards and everything
maybe
else.
08 or 09, I think is when I got my first phone, but it wasn't a smartphone. It still wasn't a camera. I don't know, but
I'd say
I don't have
I had
as
one
much.
Of those like I had one of those flip phones, like it was like about this big, and it flipped up, and then it had the full keyboard, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
That was the coolest thing ever. But I feel like they were like 7 or 8, 5 or 6 or something.
Yeah, 5, 6.
It's just not
it wasn't
the same. Like now,
so like I have digital pictures of him because of like the memory cards and everything else that we were running around with. But on the phone itself, I want to say 5, 6 is when. That's how far back my pictures go with him. Yeah. But it is also kind of cool that we have sort of that digital record of the kids. And like, I mean, my growing up, Ethan always wants to see pictures of my childhood and stuff. And my mom has big photo albums of printed photos that she hasn't digitized yet. So whenever we go to my parents' house, like when he was little especially, he'd sit there with the big photo albums out and he'd be flipping through them. Mom, what's that? Mom, what's that? And so it's super cute.
Where do they live now?
In Port Townsend, on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington.
Oh,
so gorgeous area. They have several acres out there. My mom has a big vegetable garden. And
You need to introduce her to iMemories.
yes.
You need to
Or there's also
confiscate those photo albums, mail them to Scottsdale.
I'm not sure she'd let me confiscate
I
them.
know, but it's so easy. I mean, like literally send them all. It's the company's here.
Okay.
So mine are only going 20 minutes away, but like they don't,
Yeah.
it's all insured. Like no one's losing your stuff. And then it's all online for the rest of your life.
That's true.
It's amazing. My little camcorder videos, I just kind of go to imemories.com every once in a while. I'm like, and I just press play for like 20 minutes. Like I don't have to get anything out. I don't have to find anything. And it's just like all there forever, you know?
Good idea.
It's awesome.
Maybe I can convince my dad to convince my mom.
Maybe there's somewhere local that she doesn't.
Possibly. Yeah. Or maybe she could just fly down here with them.
Yes.
To come see Ethan
Do
and
that.
then bring the photos with her. That may make her a little bit more comfortable.
Just drive there, you know, and like so she can see them arrive.
Yeah. Because my dad, before he retired, he upgraded her computer. And my mom is not the most technical person ever. My dad is very techie. My mom, she gets by and she figures it out. But she has her patterns on her desktop. She has like her shortcuts and things. My dad moved her photos. Like there was a folder on her desktop that was for photos, and he just moved it down into the regular documents area. She called me, I want to say it was like 11 o'clock at night, and just the line of profanity that came out of her mouth and cursing at my dad was unreal. She's like, I'm going to kill him. He deleted all my photos, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm sure he didn't. Like, let's just figure it out. And so at that time, I hadn't installed that like kind of spy software, the log me in type software on her computer. And so I'm like trying to describe it. My mom's on a PC and I've always worked on Macs.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to describe, I'm like, okay, describe what your desktop looks like which operating system are you on? And so I'm like trying to walk her through this. And we finally found the photos. And like I helped her move them back onto her desktop. But after that, because my dad was still traveling, I put that log me in software on her computer because if I was going to play tech support for her, like I needed just to be able to sign in to fix the computer. Yeah. So only for my mom do I do IT work. Anybody else, I don't install printers. I don't.
And that's pretty much true of all of us that are around this age.
Yeah, I don't play tech support for anybody else.
And Dad calls me. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's like,
what
okay,
happened now?
2 hours.
Luckily, we have really smart computer people in my family, so I'm not usually his first call. But it's social media. Okay.
Yes.
I have this email that it says from Facebook, and somebody tagged me. What did they do? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
I don't know, Dad. I just have to drive over there. Like I'm not even smart enough to do the log me in thing. I'm like, I don't know. I'll be right there.
Yeah. I'm
So
coming over.
cute.
We'll just hang out.
I know. I got to sit in front of your computer. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, my two sisters, they also, I mean, they're well versed in tech enough because they've been around it since we were kids. I mean, we had an Apple IIgs in the house. Like,
No way.
Yeah. My dad's always been very into computers. I mean, I remember playing Oregon Trail on my Apple IIgs computer where everything was green. Like it was the green screen and the floppy disks and everything else. Like
Talk about early adopter.
Yes.
That's your dad.
very much
Very
so.
first adopter to buy anything.
Yeah, and
Amazing.
like Mavis Beacon teaches typing. Like that's how I learned how to type on a
No
computer.
way.
And yeah, like
nuts.
super old technology. And
That's
and we
nuts.
had internet in the house in mid 90s.
No way.
Yeah.
We didn't have jack shit.
So very
'Cause that
early
costs
adopter. My
money.
dad's always been very into tech.
It's so cool.
And also my grandma, my dad's mom, was also, she, even in her 60s, like learned how to do digital photo editing and things like that because she's always been an artist. And so she bought a digital camera and taught herself how to take pictures and edit them on the computer.
In her 60s. That's badass.
Yeah, she was a badass.
Is she still with us?
No, she passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately. But yeah, she and I were close. She's my middle name is her name, so she's my namesake. Yeah.
What's her name?
Joanne.
I love that.
Classic old name.
So good. So
Yeah.
good. My granny's name was Pearl, and that's
how
my daughter's middle
cool.
name.
That is awesome.
I just had to. I said, I don't care what her first name is. Her middle name's Pearl, no matter what.
Yes. Yeah, my parents did that. Like my dad's middle name is Michael. My older sister's middle name is Michelle. I don't actually know where my little sister's middle name came from. It's Clarissa. It's again just kind of a old name. I think my mom just liked it. But there is
Silence
no
of the Lambs. Oh, that's Clarice.
That's Clarice. No, I don't
Just
think
kidding.
my mom
I've
loved
never
that.
even
Yeah.
seen that movie.
Neither have
It's
I.
terrifying.
I just know
I
it.
will never see that movie. I just know that one line.
I don't do scary movies.
Gross. No, I can't do it.
There was this
Nightmares for days.
Yes, I can convince myself of almost anything with a scary movie. Like that show, Criminal Minds. I used to absolutely love this show, and it's the FBI behavioral unit that goes
My
into
daughter's,
sort of the,
that's what she's obsessed with right
yeah,
now.
it goes into the psychology of these really gruesome murders and stuff. And I used to love this show just because they dissect everything and just the
How do
why
they
behind
solve it. And
yeah. I thought it was really interesting until there was one episode where this woman like lived alone in an area, like in a neighborhood that looked like my neighborhood. And like, I didn't necessarily live alone, but like Ethan was back and forth between the two houses. So occasionally I was alone. And this woman went running all the time in the morning, and then she got kidnapped, and that just kind of hit too close to home. And right then I'm like, nope, we're done. After that one episode, I have not actually watched an episode since.
I can't do it.
No.
I can't do it at all.
And then one of my friends, she recommended me watch this really artsy movie. I think it's called like What Is Above Is Now Below or something. It takes place in the French catacombs. And like, I love the history of Europe, and I've been to the catacombs before. And so she thought I would like this movie. She failed to mention that it is like a scary thriller type movie. So I'm watching it at like 11 o'clock at night in the dark by myself. And it gets to this super creepy part. I'm like, nope, I'm done. I'm so done. Yeah. And I'm texting her. I'm like, what did you have me watch? Yes, pretty much. And she's like, well, I thought you'd enjoy it. I'm like, no.
Why did you think I would enjoy that?
She's like, well, did you watch all of it? I'm like, nope.
No.
Turned it off halfway through. She's like, oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. People don't think that stuff is scary at all. My kids don't think it's scary at all. They sit there and they laugh at it.
No,
They think it's hilarious. I'm like, that's not hilarious at all. Oh,
Yeah,
anyway.
I can't do scary movies at all.
Dude,
I like
not at all.
I like adventure. I like action. Blow it all up. Multi-million-dollar fight scenes, car chases. Funny movies.
Get the bad guy.
Yep.
Love that.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the Bonds, and I love like the Indiana Joneses and things like that. But like, I don't like being scared. I just don't need to be. And like roller coaster scared is different than movie scared. Like there's something like the psychological side of being scared. Like my imagination can convince me of anything. I cannot do that. But throw me on a roller coaster, bungee jump, skydive, whatever. Like I'm all for that. But not.
Don't show me
scary.
a dark corner and some dude appearing with a knife. No, thank you.
No, not at all. And I mean, even like the really cheesy ones like Jaws.
Yeah.
I saw Jaws as a kid, and we were living in Egypt at the time. And and like we would go to the Red Sea, and like I would snorkel in the ocean, and there would be reef sharks and stuff. I'd be fine with it. But for whatever reason, my little child brain thought a shark was going to come up through the pool drain and eat me. So when we were doing like diving practice off the diving board, they always told you to jump off the front of the diving board. I had always jumped towards the side. They're like, no, you're supposed to go off. But there was a pool drain out there.
Oh.
And like I would see it. I'm just like, nope,
No.
I'm going that way.
There's a shark coming out of it any second.
Yes. And like just the brain didn't quite, I don't know why.
I'm the same.
But yeah.
Anyway, Clarissa was not named after Silence of the Lambs.
I have no idea where that one came from. I think my mom just kind of chose it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, grandma. Okay.
But then like Ethan, his middle name is his dad's middle name, which is Bowman. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
family name.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just pass it down.
Yeah. I love it. So that's kind of how you became super techie, because I mean, you're doing tech now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing with tech right now? I always think, I think you're fishing 24/7, but I don't know.
No, if I would love to be fishing 24/7, but well, no, I am CTO of a couple different companies. One of them is a digital advisory practice. So we do a lot of strategy visualization for Fortune 500 companies.
Oh, cool.
And so it's helping them communicate their story better. Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of organizations have like 60, 70 page PowerPoints or slide PowerPoints, and they're trying to communicate their investor story or their company story or where they're going and like what their vision is. And there's usually a ton of words on these slides.
Yeah.
Like people don't consume words as well as they do images.
They don't have the attention span anymore.
Yeah. And so we help them distill that information down and actually communicate it better, usually through pictures.
Infographics.
And then what I also do is then look at their processes, capabilities, and tech stack and make sure that it is working to enable their sales teams and their marketing teams instead of creating friction. Because a lot of those ops teams, like there's a marketing ops, a sales ops, customer success ops, and they don't really talk to each other. But they're all working within the same tech ecosystem. And so making them all be more in alignment and not like create 20 million required fields that then the salespeople feel they're doing data entry and really serving up information at the time that they need it. So like somebody in marketing knows what emails or blogs or whatever a person has consumed and can anticipate what the next thing is that somebody might be interested in. And then like sales will know what the person's interested in from a buying perspective, and like also be able to more intelligently talk about who the company is, what they're trying to do with the technology or whatever that they're the product that they're selling. And then customer success, unfortunately, a lot of companies think like after somebody buys, they're not intentional about that customer experience. So like the onboarding and the integration and like creating kind of those raving fans when they buy your software.
And the systems for it.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, contract signed, done. Okay, moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
They don't actually then, you don't hear from that company again until it's renewal time. And it's like, well, we haven't gotten any value out of your software. So it's actually being
used it yet.
Yeah, it's being intentional with that customer experience. And so again, it's that kind of that go-to-market function.
Cool.
And so that's a lot of what I do. And then we're also developing, my business partner wrote a book called Relationship Economics. And it's about being intentional with your relationships. And there's like your 2 a.m.ers who are those people that you can call at any time and they will help you out. And then then there's the influencers, and then there's your broader connections that you've kind of met at coffee, or they're your kids' soccer coach or whatever. So they're kind of in your ecosystem, but not really. But it's also then
acquaintances more.
Yeah, and then it's creating a structure for yourself to create proactive outreach and create this network of relationships and just be more intentional with your relationships, because like we're very digitally connected, but we're also very disconnected because everybody's just kind of getting those snippets of information, and like you'll update your LinkedIn, but like you won't necessarily have, like I won't have your most updated contact information, and you've changed jobs 3 times. So have I really kept up with you?
I didn't call my friend to tell her. I just updated LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I just posted on Facebook instead of sharing real life with real people in real time.
Yeah. And so it's creating those real relationships instead of just doing the digital work. And so he focuses a lot on that. And a lot of the stuff that he's done over the last 20 years in his executive coaching side of the business has all been pencil and paper. So I'm actually creating a software right now that allows you to concat all of your information. So like put your phone contacts, your email contacts, your LinkedIn, like all connect it together and have it actually update, and then learn from the connections that you have to suggest, hey, this person just posted an article and they were featured in, maybe you should reach out and congratulate them. Or this person just changed jobs. Like, do you have their most updated information? So it helps you kind of keep up with the relationships that you want to have.
On all of them all together? Oh, that's brilliant.
And so it's one place for all of your information. It's not really a CRM system, because like customer relationship management systems they're bloated, and a lot of times it's dirty data in and it just sits there and nobody ever keeps it up to date. Yeah, and so this is actually just a way to keep all of that, but it stays up to date, and it, like I said, it learns. So we're putting some machine learning and large language models into it. So that's coming October is actually, there's a big project that we're doing for a large organization. Schneider Electric is what we're doing it for, and they have a big sales meeting in October. And so we're rolling out this software for their sales team first. Yeah, and then it's going to be a wider audience for everybody else.
Sweet. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then we also just launched a book publishing. So he's written 12 books. My business partner has written 12 books, and he's done it self-published, but he's also gone with the big guys before. And the experience isn't awesome in a lot of them. Like they don't actually, like the smaller authors, they don't have the same like marketing support and everything else. Like you have to basically be your own marketing department.
Right. I know.
Yeah. You've written. Yes. I mean, I found out about your book from you at the last art event. And so we've launched that. It's called Honey Tape Publishing.
Cool.
And it is for authors and it's for operators. So it's like if you're a COO or a CTO and you've identified something that's like missing, or you've created a process that really works in your industry or organization, you have an idea that you want to communicate, David actually will help the person write that book and tell that story in a really strategic way. Then we have an illustrator, we have copywriters, and we actually help publish and market your book for you. And so it's a really cool sort of a new way to publish books.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your book going to be about?
I don't know yet. I haven't decided. Several people have asked, like, you got to write an adventure book, because I have had, like, in my short life, like, I've had many adventures. And just kind of the way I've grown up is not what everybody's experienced.
So
and I always, like, recommend, everybody's like, well, I'm graduating high school. Like, what should I do? I say travel. Like, that is number one. Go somewhere where you've never gone before. And even, like, I know people who have stayed in the same area of 20 years, and they're adults. They have no kids at home, and they're bored with what's happening. And it's just, go somewhere else. Like, if you don't like it, you can always go home. And like with Ethan, when he and his high school friend wanted to move down here to Phoenix, he wasn't sure that he'd like it, because he'd never been here. They just chose. They were looking at 3 different cities: Southern California, Phoenix, and Houston, because they love cars.
Oh.
And so they were wanting a really cool car scene. And Southern California was too expensive. Houston, he didn't know if he wanted the humidity. And
so gross.
Phoenix, they'd never been
because of
here.
Barrett Jackson?
Yeah.
Is that how they chose Scottsdale? I mean, Arizona.
More
Because
or
of Barrett
less,
Jackson comes here.
basically.
That's nuts.
And so he and his friend, like, figured out how much money they needed to move down here and everything. And they just, sight unseen, they moved to Phoenix. Wow. And Ethan's always had that kind of independent spirit and just that
Gee,
adventure.
I wonder where he gets that from. That's so weird.
But he's always been really adventurous. But I told him, like, if you get down there and you don't like it, you can always come home. And like at the time I was still up in Washington. Yeah. And so it's just like, it's fine. And wherever I do go, I've always reinforced to him, you will always have a room wherever I am. So like my condo in Atlanta, there's a room that's set up and he's got stuff in it and everything else. Like he has a room.
It's his room, even though he's never lived there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
And the dog
I'm the
even
opposite.
knows it,
I always threaten my kids. I'm like, if you don't, I will move into a 1-bedroom apartment. Don't you believe I won't?
I love
I'll kick you out. And I'll be.
That's awesome.
They know I'm full of shit. I'll never do that.
You never know.
Literally built them a house. They have a house underneath my house. They have the whole basement to themselves.
Nice.
I'm totally crap.
They may call your bluff one of these times. And then what are you going to do?
I don't even say it anymore. They're like, you're full of shit, Mom. Thanks for the house down here.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're welcome. Love you. Stay here forever.
Yeah. I mean, I would, like, Ethan and I have a really good relationship, and he's just recently got into riding motorcycles and stuff, and he didn't want to take the motorcycle.
Is that how you got into it?
No, my dad.
You did.
My dad rides
you've been
motorcycles.
doing it forever. Okay.
Yeah.
Now Ethan's doing it.
Yeah, Ethan's doing it, and he didn't want to take the class by himself, and so last December, like, I just had a free weekend, and so I flew from Atlanta to here just to spend the weekend with Ethan. And I'd taken the MSF class, like the safety course, twice already. And like, I just did it again because Ethan wanted to. And so I'm just like, all right, let's go. And it was a lot of fun. He got a perfect score, which was really cool. Like, he focused, and like, he'd never really ridden motorcycles at all before. And he's just very sort of mechanically inclined. And then he came out one of the weekends he was out there. I have 2 motorcycles, and so he was on one, and we were in the parking lot and we were riding around, and he was just very comfortable on it, like standing up and doing turns and figure eights and everything. I'm just like, okay, cool. And
friggin' natural.
But then we went out into the neighborhood, and I mean, Atlanta traffic, he got a little overwhelmed just because, like, I kept him in the neighborhood, but then the only way to get back to the condo was a main road, and so he got a little freaked out there. But so we're still working on the actual main road riding. Yeah. But he still absolutely loves it. Yeah, he wants a motorcycle, and he understands, like, there's the rule, like, I wear an airbag. And basically, if you get disconnected from the bike, it puffs. Like, it goes up under your neck, it goes all the way down your front, and then down the back to protect all your organs. Oh. Coolest things ever. They do work. My business partner has done his twice. His son got clipped by a car, got flipped over the front of his motorcycle, and he was also wearing an airbag, walked away, like got up, walked away.
No way.
Yeah, so they work. Like, huge proponent, all the gear, all the time. And Ethan knows that. Like, and I told him, if you get a motorcycle here in Phoenix, I don't care if it's hot. There's mesh gear that's like fully armored. Like, you have to wear it.
You have to.
And so, and he understands that. So he understands the risk. And I'm just like, the only way you're going to be riding is if you wear all your stuff. I don't care if it's 5 minutes or like 5 hours, you will wear your stuff. He's like, yeah, okay, Mom. Okay. So
Scares the shit out of me. Yeah. Let's just go back to fishing for a little bit, you know, because how did that all start? I mean, you're in Spokane, you're a baby raising your baby.
Yep.
And you loved, how did you just start fly fishing all of a sudden? Who does that?
Well, it wasn't really like a start all of a sudden. So like I said, I've spent every summer and Christmas in Washington State, and my grandma. Yeah, my dad's mom was always very outdoorsy, and she would take us camping. And so there's a place outside of Leavenworth. It's called Icicle Creek, and it's in the Cascade Mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous, and that's actually where she taught me to fly fish.
Cool.
And so as a kid, like, we were fly fishing, and then like on our camping trips, we'd go up, like, we'd hike up to this other place called Heart Lake. And I mean, I have a picture, I think it was 8 or 9. I'm holding this like itty bitty little trout, and I'm like, I'm beaming, holding this little trout. It was so much fun. And back then, I mean, I didn't really know what we were doing, and like we were fly fishing occasionally, but a lot of times, like, we were also just conventional fishing, which, like, the marshmallows and the power pellets and all of those things, and you just kind of or putting hot dogs on the hook and throwing it out there. Dude, and like,
that's what I see the kids at the lake all the time. Hot dogs. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they work.
All right.
And so I actually started fishing as a kid, and then go after university and things. As Ethan was actually getting into elementary school is when I got back into fishing, because he was now gone and like during the day, and I now actually had kind of time for myself. And I know people who have babies and they take their babies on the river with them. Yeah. But I wasn't one of those moms. Like, Ethan would come out and do wildernessly stuff with me, but fishing, I really just didn't get back into it until Ethan was back in elementary. And so it was sort of a peaceful disconnect type thing, because like, when you're fishing, you can't be tied to your phone, you can't be tied to a computer, and like, my job is very techie, and like, basically if I have internet, I can work. And so I was trying to find ways to disconnect and just kind of have that balance, and fishing is that for me. Yeah. And
you actually don't have cell service out there.
No, most of the time you don't. And like, it's phenomenal. But I go hiking with my Garmin. Like, it's a satellite device. So like, I can get help if I need help, and I can text people, and it also peace of mind for my mom. There's a website she can go to and ping it, and it knows my location.
Aww, cute mom.
So
we never stop worrying.
No, ever. And so yeah, in elementary for Ethan is when I got back into fishing. And in Spokane, there's her name's Heather. She started an organization called United Women on the Fly, and it's now in all 50 states. And so there's chapters in all the different states. And I think there's even some international. But she also just encouraged the fly fishing. And so she taught me a lot about entomology, which is the study of bugs and the river life. And I would go out fishing with her. And she and I have been to Alaska a couple times fishing with my friend that I mentioned earlier that opened the lodge. Yeah. I think we were up there 2018. Coolest experience ever. We were in Katmai National Park, which is famous for their bears, the big brown bears. God. And we were fishing in the same river, and you'd have 1,000-pound brown bear grizzly bear just float right by you.
No way.
Yeah. It's the coolest thing ever. And bears do this really cool thing. It's called snorkeling. It's where they stick their face in the water and their ears stay out, but they're looking for fish, and they basically just kind of float because they have so much blubber. They can kind of float down the river. And so we were standing on this little grassy piece in the middle of this river, and like, Mama and her 2 cubs were behind us, and this big old bear was floating down the river in front of us. And it was a very, very cool. We didn't do much fishing on that specific day. We ended up watching the bears more, but if you leave them alone, they leave you alone, and they're more interested in the salmon anyway. But it was the coolest thing ever. So anyway, Heather really encouraged getting back into the fishing and stuff. And then I started guiding fishing because I love teaching and just getting people out in nature. And most of the time when I say that I fly fish, people are like, oh my God, I've never done that. Like, I'd love to try.
Like I just did.
Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, let's go. And so, and in Spokane, there's a river that literally was 10 minutes from my house. So I could just meet people down at the park and I'd teach them how to cast, and then we'd get them out on the water, and it was a lot of fun. And then I started going down to Colorado, and then I guided in Colorado, and then I went to guide school in Colorado, and that's actually how I met my best friend. And I mean, her and I, you'd think we'd known each other for forever. We'd really only known each other since like 2019. Wow. And I mean, she's like a sister to me, and she's amazing. But she and I, we've done like month-long road trips where we're fishing through like 6 different states, and so much fun. And we've gone to another guide school together and in Montana, and it's been a really incredible journey. And then 3 years ago is when I actually started competing in fly fishing. Like, I had no idea competition fly fishing was a thing.
I didn't either.
And so then I'm just like, oh, well, I love fishing, like, and I love competition. Like, I've always been an athlete. I'm just like, okay, let's try this.
Pretty sure I could beat somebody at this shit.
Pretty sure I could do this. I can figure this out.
Why not?
And so yeah, 3 years ago is when I started competing, and that's also when the U.S. women's team started, because we're trying to get fly fishing specifically, recognized as Olympic sport. And so to be recognized as an Olympic sport, every country has to have a designated men's and women's team. And so there's been an adult team here in the United States for like the last 20 years. And there have been, I think, 4 women total on the adult team. And so to be recognized by the IOC, you have to have distinct teams. And so we separated, and so that we have a women's team and we have a men's team. It's still called the adult team, but it's primarily made of men. And we've had a youth team also for forever. And the youth team have amazing anglers. Like, they've won gold, silver several times. And like, so they're incredible anglers. And they usually go then up into the adult team. There's, I think, 1 girl on the current youth team. So again, most girls are not involved in the youth aspect of this either. But so we started the women's team 3 years ago, and then COVID happened, and it pushed the first ever women's world championship that was supposed to be in Norway 3 years ago to last year. And so we got to go to Norway. I was there for a month. The U.S. took 4th, literally missed podium by like 2 fish.
Come on.
2 fish, 1 point we missed the podium by, but we took 4th. We took 4th out of 11, which was really awesome. And then we've got Worlds again, obviously this year. It's going to be up in Kamloops, British Columbia.
Wow.
And so we're hoping for another really good showing. And it's a really unique way to fish, because, I mean, usually you just go out and you fish the river, but the competition aspect of it is really, you have a section of river and you're assigned like a small portion of it. And then you have 90 minutes to fish that section and get the most and as well as the biggest fish, because there's a minimum fish size. And so it's quantity first. And then if there's a tie of like, you get 10, I get 10. All right, well, who then caught the biggest, like the most centimeters of fish? And so
like poker,
basically. Yeah. And so that's how you river fish. And then on the lakes, there's also a lake aspect to it. You're actually sitting in like a drift boat, and you have something called a drogue, which is like a big sail that you kind of throw out the back of the boat, and you drift with the wind. So the wind's at your back and the boat's going like with the wind, and you're only allowed to fish your quadrant, so the front quadrant of the boat. And then you have the other person in the boat is a competitor. So like, you're in a different country, I'm the States and you're Finland or whatever. You're in the same boat as me, and so I'm competing against you, but we're in the same boat. And so sometimes when you're lake fishing, you want to take first and second, so like you want to place well, and so you'll coordinate with the other angler, even though they're a different country. But like, if I take first, you take second, that still helps like the rankings. Everybody else is, and so you kind of just pair up that way. But yeah, it's so just awesome. A really different way of fishing, and you got to figure out what they're eating and how they're eating. And how Canada is going to actually be different is you only can use 1 fly. A lot of times you can use multiple flies. There's something called a dry dropper where you have like 2 flies together and you're throwing it out there. And so you can figure out what the fish is eating quicker, because maybe they're eating top of the water column, down deeper in the water. And so if you're throwing 2 flies, you can figure out what they're eating faster. But in Canada, you can only throw 1. So you have to start at the top of the water column and then quickly figure out how deep are these fish. And then once you find them, that's when you like use that same weight of fly to then catch the fish. Yeah, it's really weird. It's different.
Amazing. So cool. It's something I don't know anything about. But what's
we'll get you
striking
fishing.
me, yeah, we're going.
Yeah.
What's striking me as you're talking about this is that you just totally like light up. You know, you're so excited. You can't, wipe the smile off of your face. And I can't help but feel that something that I always talk to my clients about is that you've got to have the thing that you love and you've got to go do it.
Yes.
And I just want you to, can you like talk about that for a second? You're young, you're 25, you have a baby, you're working full time, all of the things, but you're doing this thing. Like, what are the, like, if there's a single mama out there, really struggling and really stressed out and have the weight of the world on their shoulders, it's got to be one of the things you got to recommend. Like, let's just talk about that for a little bit, before we wrap up. What is it about? It doesn't have to be fishing, obviously,
but you've got to find the thing. Yeah, definitely. You have to find the thing that just lights you up. And as moms, moms, dads, whomever,
right?
Like single parent, coupled parent, whatever. Like
it's true.
You have to have time for yourself. Like even if it's 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be expensive hobby. It's just you have to have something that refills your cup because it's the cliche as you possibly can get. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And so it's really finding just something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's scrapbooking. Maybe you just love reading, and you have to carve that time out for yourself. And I mean, I love my son to death. And when he was little, I incorporated him in everything that I did. I didn't go anywhere without him. Like if he wanted to play a sport, I was all in, and I was mom on the sidelines, and I was bringing the orange slices and the fruit snacks and whatever.
100%.
But at the same time, like I knew I needed something for me, like just for my personality, like I needed that. And a lot of times it was when he went to bed. I would then just stay up, and so then I was perpetually tired. But it was really just one of those things that I knew that for me to be the best version of me, I had to find something that only I was passionate about.
Just for you.
Yeah. And for a while it was, for me also, it was reading. Like, because as a kid, I was never really a voracious reader at all. But that was something that I could do while Ethan was sleeping. And it was just easy, and I could just lose myself in a book, and my imagination could just kind of take me away. But then with time, and as he started becoming his own human, then there was more time for me, and I could fill it back with things that I was very passionate about. So that was when I started hiking again, and I started fishing again. And so it's just, and it was always really cool that I was also setting the example for him, because he is one of my biggest supporters. It's great. Last year when I was in Norway for Worlds, he was still up in Spokane, and he was taking care of the house. And I have one of those Ring cameras, and several times he knew it would record when he showed up, and he'd be like, "Love you, mama," and he'd literally leave me messages through the Ring camera. Aww. And on my birthday, same thing. He's like, "Happy birthday, mom!" And then first day of competition, he's like, "I'm so proud of you," and he sends me text messages too. He is my biggest supporter, and it's awesome because he knows I support him just as much. Yeah. And it was never him. It was never a choice between him and what I was doing. He knew that I fully supported him, and that this was something that was for me. And so you've got to find it. And it's hard at first. And if you have multiple kids, I only had one. And so it was man-to-man coverage. So it's kind of easy, but it was easier. Yeah. But even if you have multiple kids, maybe find a way that they could be incorporated in it. Maybe you love scrapbooking, maybe get them a little scrapbook or get them a coloring book. And so they could be at the one end of the table
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of explain why you love it so much. And Ethan, for the longest time, he wasn't interested in wanting to come fishing with me at all, but he knew that when I came back, I was just happier. And so he's like, "Yeah, sure, mom, go do your thing."
Go for it, because you're a happy mom.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that's another thing that we don't necessarily, we always talk about filling up your cup and self-care and #self-care. It is cliche, and like most cliches,
Yeah.
They're also true.
It's true. Yeah.
But one of the components that you just said that I wanted to point out is that you're setting the example of. So like you're thinking about this, do you want to set the example of that I don't take time for myself? And so then you want children that don't take time for themselves? Do you want children that don't create joy in their own life, finding the things that they're passionate about? I don't think anybody wants their child to not find something that they love and they're passionate about. And I think that's one of the little missing links, we as parents, that if we are setting the example with everything we do. And that includes if we deny ourselves the joy of whatever it is that we love, then we're training future human adults to do the same.
Yes.
So
well, it's also almost,
I don't want that.
It's almost hypocritical, because we also always say, like, pursue your passions and go after what you love. And then they see us not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're settling. Like,
yeah.
Again, you're showing, kids are sponges. They will do more that they see you do than what you
100%.
say they should do.
100%.
And so you've got to show them that there's another way, and that you can be passionate about these things and still take care of your bills in the house and everything else. And don't ever make it seem as if like kids are a burden, because I've seen some parents do that. It's just like, wow, if you weren't here, blah, blah, blah. Like Ethan knows
I
that
wish I could do X, Y, Z, but
if I wasn't having to do this, that, and the other thing, I could go do whatever. It's like, no. It's all the things. You've got to figure out how to do life just in general. And I mean, one of the other big things, somebody recently, I was at a track event. So I've recently just started racing motorcycles. So I've been riding for a while, but like
saw that.
I just started racing them.
So crazy.
It's very cool. But at a track event, one of the guys that I was talking to, he's just like, I have not met somebody with more chaotic interests than you, because somehow we just kind of covered the gamut of what I do.
Yeah.
And like the tech stuff and the fishing stuff and the motorcycles, he's like, I don't know how all this connects together. I'm just like, well, you get one shot at life. Like, why not fill it with experiences? Like,
it doesn't have to connect.
I don't need more stuff. Like, I would rather spend my time and money with people that are cool and trying new things. And yeah, I may suck at it, but at the same time, it's an experience. And it's just kind of that growth mindset that a lot of people just shut down. They're just like, no, I'm going to look stupid or ridiculous. And they're afraid of what they'd look like, that perception. Just go out and do it. Like, if you want to try it, seriously, just go do it. Because again, that's showing your kids that you can be vulnerable at something just because you can, like just because you want to try it. And it's really important. And I think too many people just kind of put themselves in a box of like, nope, I'm a grown up. I can't have any fun. Like I have adult responsibilities, and they forget that they have needs too. And it's really important to show the kids that you can.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's part of the secret, like, also a cliche word, of a really fulfilled life is just freaking trying something new. Yeah. Just learning something new, experiencing anything new. And that's exactly what you're doing literally all the time. Whatever is going to be next, who knows what it is? What is going to be next? All right, so what are we going to learn next? Okay, you're going to be an Olympic angler as soon as that gets approved, and then you're going to win a gold medal, and then you're going to win motorcycle championships, and then what? What do you not know?
I don't know yet. But yeah, it's about experiencing life and something new. Mean, I am food, experience, whatever. I am more than willing to try it more than once. Like, there's some things that the experience once was enough, like eating goat eyeballs. But,
like uni.
Yeah. No, thank you. But yeah, just being willing to just go and try and experience and ask questions and just being perpetually curious. Yeah. Like, as a kid, I loved why. My mom would try and explain something. Well, why?
But why is that?
Why? And I'm sure I drove her nuts with my why questions, and even my dad. But like, it was just that curiosity, and never losing that curiosity for life, and just wanting to know how everything works. I mean, it leads to so much. Yeah. And just not accepting the status quo, I guess, is the other part of it. And it's just well, why can't I do that? Like same thing, like with the competitive angling. Well, I've never done it before. Okay, well, let's go do it. Like in high school.
How would you know if you don't try it?
Yeah, if you just don't go and do. And like in high school, I didn't know how to play baseball, but like I'd always wanted to. And like my best friend's dad was the baseball coach. And so he taught me how to do it. And so I learned how to play baseball as a sophomore in high school. Like I sucked at it at first, but it was fun. And my friends were out there and they were all very encouraging. And I got better. And same thing, crew in college. Like I had never done it, but heck, let's go do it. Like you never know. And so it's one of those things that I think more people need to just kind of adopt that. I may be really bad at this, but like, let's go do it anyway.
And
it'll be fun. It'll be a story.
Yeah. A new experience.
Yeah. And I saw a sticker actually in the Bozeman airport just yesterday. And it's like, bad choices lead to excellent stories.
It's true.
And it's not necessarily bad choices. I mean, they can be good choices too, but unsure choices or the unknown can lead to some really amazing stories.
Best
and really
memories ever.
Yeah. And the memories are what count. Like that's the other thing is you don't have to constantly be streaming your life. Like be there, be present. And like, remember the pictures yourself or take like a picture and then go be present. Don't have your phone out all the time. That drives me nuts when people go to concerts and all you see are all these phones out. It's like, are you actually enjoying this music? Like you could be sitting in your car listening to this instead of like physically here and seeing them and like, so just be present. And it's just, it's that curiosity that like, if anybody takes anything away from this conversation, it's just be curious about what's around you. And you may have lived in the same place for forever, but go be a tourist in your own city for a day. Like you never know. And I mean, I recently moved to Atlanta. I've gone to the World of Coke. I've been to the aquarium. I've been to the Atlanta History Center. Like these are all things that if I just grew up there and like my business partner has been there for 40 years and he didn't know about like this really cool mansion that they filmed the Hunger Games at. And I went and toured the thing.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he knew it was filmed in Atlanta, but he didn't know that mansion was like literally a mile from his house.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No,
like the Swan Mansion, like President Snow's where they have that big party and
Seriously?
stuff.
That was in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And it's like right there in Buckhead and it, like my dog and I walk by it almost every single day. And so it's just some of those things that even if you've been in the same place for forever, just randomly choose something and go do it.
So much stuff you haven't seen.
Yeah. And it's so much fun. Or like look at the events calendar and like, or for the Chamber of Commerce and maybe it's a street fair or maybe it's a farmer's market and just go. Like just change your routine.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen, sister.
It's so much fun.
So cool. Oh my gosh. How can people find you? Where do they find you?
So Instagram is the best place to find me right now. It's Global Gypsy. The first O is a 0. So yeah, or just type in Jenn Cordz. Yeah, it'll come up too.
I'll put it in the link in the notes.
But yeah, Instagram is the best place to find me. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all the places. But Instagram is usually where I post all my pictures, and it'll be a lot of my dog, and it'll be a lot of fishing and travel,
and a lot of motorcycles, and a lot of just all of your badassery.
Yeah, you'll see life, and I just kind of like try and blend it all together.
It's so fun. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I'm so sad to wrap this up. Thank you, listeners, watchers, viewers. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my show. I love you. God bless you. Just remember, you can create any life that you want. The life that you've dreamed of just takes one day at a time, one adventure at a time.
Absolutely.
All right. Peace out. God bless you.